Hello and a very warm welcome back to the latest episode of our Sandship series. We are revisiting the puzzles, guys, after many requests that we've had to help you out on some of these more complex and mind-boggling puzzles that some people are creating. So we've taken a sample of some of the more difficult ones and we're going to run through the solutions for each and every one step by step. If you guys want to follow along at the same time, please feel free. Other than that, let's dive straight in. So this first puzzle is called One of Us. Now, it's a bit of a decoy because you don't actually use any of the second half of the puzzle. What you need to do is grab a long grabber, face it upwards, and build your own cutter and exporter system, completely ignoring the second half as it won't work, and that's all you need to do to complete the puzzle. Now next up we've got what's called Three Dudes. Now, there's a bit of a clue in the title here. Again, we're going to stick to these long grabbers, and the solution for this is to first place the first grabber left to right, the middle grabber up to down, and your third and final long grabber left to right again. That will enable the carbon and coal to circulate around and finally produce that steel. It looks a lot more complicated because of the amount of devices on screen, but it is very easy once you know the solution. Next up we've got one that's called Separate, and the key to completing this one is the use of the underground tracks. So we're going to start off at the top here, place our heater down, followed by a second underground track to connect it up to the steel system, and then finish off by putting in another synthesizer and another underground track at the bottom row. Make sure you've got your materials right. One needs to be carbon, one needs to be coal, and man, that will enable you to export the steel plates. On to the next puzzle. It's called Iron. So for this one we've got three different types of iron: plates, wires and rods. And working from top down, the first item we're going to need is a splitter. We're then going to put two heaters next to it, a press and an exporter to finish off the plate production, and then we're then going to segregate off the bottom row into another splitter, place a cutter down so we can enable creation of rods, connect that up to the exporter, and then finally at the very bottom we're going to place a second cutter, a heater and an extruder so we can make those wires. Fingers crossed, once all that's set up. Perfect. The next one's called Fast Steel Pipe. Again, looks quite complex due to the devices already on the screen. We will need to use some more underground belts to complete this one. So we're going to start on the bottom row here, and we've put synthesizers and the underground tracks to connect up to the steel production. Because of the lack of space, we're also going to have to use a heat gun to heat the material instead of a heater itself. And then that's the bottom row completed. Now we're going to do a similar setup here on the top, another synthesizer and heater, and again use a second set of underground tracks to circumnavigate the devices on top. We also need to place another heat gun down here to make sure that they're at sufficient temperature. So that's two sets of steel plates being generated. Now we also need to add some grabbers to place into the mechanical assembler and also to the exporter. Final check to make sure all raw materials are of the correct type to make the steel, and that is all you need to do to complete that one. So next up we've got puzzle 8. First of all we're going to start off with the synthesizer in the top corner. Place a heat gun to heat up the material. Rearrange the ice guns so they're facing the correct way. Place an additional heat gun at the bottom to make sure everything's at the correct temperature, and then to finish it off we're going to place a cutter into the splitter and an extra extruder. We're trying to create two sets of copper wires, so that will enable double the output and we will complete the puzzle. Next up we've got steel by Fabses. Quite simple once you get your head around it, and a bit of symmetry involved, so we're going to place 2 synthesizers and 2 heaters at the top, feed those in to the 2 steel systems, and to create the required amount of plates we're going to put an exporter on one of the sides. And then use an underground track underneath the splitter, and then place a cutter to enable the steel rods to be created. And to make sure we've got enough materials, we're going to place a final synthesizer at the bottom, making sure you've got the right inputs of materials as well to produce the steel. As you can see, if you've got them the wrong way around, you won't be able to hit those targets, so make sure you've got your carbon at the bottom and the iron at the top, and then we'll have the required output. The last one we're going to look at is this canned water puzzle. Again, can be quite tricky, seeing as there's a lot of complex devices involved. Sometimes it can help to work your way back in solving puzzles, so that's what we're going to do on this one. So we know we're going to need an applier to mix the water and steel barrels together. So we're going to place that down here, and in order to make the water we're going to need synthesizers using hydrogen and oxygen as well as a chemical mixer. So we're going to feed that straight in to the applier and now work our way backwards to creating those steel barrels. So we know we're going to need a mixer, and we know we're going to need 2 synthesizers and 2 heaters, so we're going to place these down at the bottom row. And we're also going to need a press to feed in, and there you go. Simple as that. So simple once you know the answer. So there's 8 solutions to some of the more difficult puzzles currently circulating around in the game. We hope this has helped you guys out. If you are stuck on any of the puzzles, do let us know. We'll be happy to help. As always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye bye.